Let's get together to co-create a breakthrough for freedom of energy, sustenance, healing, and regeneration of the human vessel. Welcome to FESIG, the Free Energy Special Interest Group, where science meets spirituality in the quest for truth and knowledge to free humanity and transform this planet into a paradise. Hi everyone, welcome to FESIG, welcome to Physics. This is Crystal. I am the chairperson for this meeting. This is the 74th FESIG meeting. Welcome to Physics 74th meeting. This is the 4th of March 2020. Yes, and I'm so happy to see every one of you here. Thank you for choosing to be with us and taking time to be present in this meeting. Well, there's so many of us here now. So without much ado, I am going to share my PowerPoint very quickly so that you can see the agenda for today's meeting, 74th meeting, and the time is 2 p.m. BST, British Standard Time, 9 a.m. EST. Sorry, it's supposed to start then, but we are a little bit late because of the technical issues. And then we're going to look at the physics. This is the Free Energy Special Interest Group. We're going to look at the agenda for today's meeting. The first session is, of course, we have David Sereda speaking. And he's returning to speak because he's got so much to share. And he continues with his live stream PEMF technologies, presenting the Vortex bid and the acupuncture with tachyon light therapy, gem lasers to activate acupuncture points and meridians, and much more. And you can ask prompt questions about Tesla technology as well, that he is very expert in too, as well as and the others, you know, as you had read, and now that is being announced in the website, as well as the invitation to attend meeting letter that has gone out to you. And once David has finished with his presentation, we have the Q&A session. Then you're most welcome to put your hand up and get your questions forward to David. And once we have finished that, then we will adjourn to the second session, where we have, I'm sorry, it's just one speaker. That's a mistake here. We have Jared Wren speaking. Jared would be updating us with the assembly of his celestial chamber. He will be disclosing some new technologies that have not been discussed by anyone on the planet until now. So this is pretty exciting, not to be missed, folks. And then when we finish with the Q&A with Jared as well, then the meeting will then be adjourned to the 75th FESIG meeting on the 1st of April 2020 with confirmed speaker, Dr. Frank D. Germano, and a yet to be confirmed second speaker at the usual FESIG meeting time of 7:30 p.m. GMT. Please note the change of time. Okay. And if you need to write to me, you can write to me at crystal@truevisionofpeace.com. And our website is truevisionofpeace.com /FESIG.html. Right, so now I am going to introduce David. David is, of course, you know, had been introduced already in the first session that he spoke at FESIG, but I'm going to do it again because each video is a standalone. Right, I'm going to call out his bio. There you go. Okay. David has been studying world religions, spiritual practices, meditation, breath techniques for over 40 years, and the search for the perfect word of God, vibrations, body techniques, healing techniques, and most importantly of all, David have developed the world's largest frequency library and most advanced transmitters of these frequencies on Earth for you to benefit from. David's Vortex energy 14-pointed coil systems comes with hundreds of frequencies. The only real gem-powered PEMF gem aura energy field transmitters on Earth. He will talk about his Vortex, well, he had been talking about his Vortex energy 14-pointed coil systems in the last meeting that we had. And today he's going to talk more about the stuff that he couldn't cover last time. And this time he's going to talk about, I have mentioned earlier in the well, you know, the meeting agenda. Yeah, he will be talking about his vortex-based acupuncture with tachyon light therapy gem lasers to activate acupuncture points and meridians and more. Right, so that's David for you. David, would you pick up the microphone now? And it's over to you. You can start the presentation.
Thank you, Crystal, for having me here today in your beautiful forum of people. And thanks for, people actually showing up here today and with your busy days. And, my research into frequency has spanned over 40 years, because I found in the practice of meditation that a combination for both elevating consciousness, reaching true bliss consciousness, which I now reach almost every single day. I mean, I've been meditating for 40 years, every single day, doing many, many techniques, some that don't work at all. Some are just ideas in the mind or projections of mind. But now I'm able to reach this very authentic, blinding bliss state. And then I come out of that state, and then I deal with my family and business and children and life in the world. And it's very refreshing to be able to come to this state, twice a day, morning and night, when I meditate, and have that as kind of a frequency energy bath. And it's really something, what my dad calls my father. You should really have my father on your forum. He's the PhD from UC Berkeley from the 1960s, and he's 80 years old this month. And he talks to him and I talk about the craze of DMT and the spirit molecule, and how a lot of people find themselves attracted to substances to elevate their consciousness, because they seem to lack the authentic, it's not just chemistry, they lack the authentic ability with their busy schedule and their paradigm structures in their life and their symbols. Like, we have symbols. What is your number one priority in your life? I mean, I could ask everybody here that today. What is your number one priority? Is it to be in a bliss state? And then if you're in that state, everything else you do, it doesn't matter what you're doing. You could be taking out the trash, mowing the lawn, you could be, working, or you could be creative inciting in your business. Everything changes when you start from that state of consciousness. And we're all born as infants and children with the ability to access this supreme joy state very, very easily. I can see it in my children. I have a 4-year-old and I have a 9-year-old, and my little girls are just little bliss balls. They know how to go into this state very quickly, especially when they come around me when I'm meditating. And I found it's a combination of breath work and frequency, and then the insight process that follows frequency. Frequency is designed, see, there are very many, countless trillions, quadrillions of frequency bands in the universe. So Royal Rife decided to look at viruses and pathogens under a 30,000 times microscope. And in his day, he was the first one to build a microscope that could see these diseases live. And he found what I call destructive frequencies. So imagine you're tuning on your AM or your FM dial, and you finally find your radio station. And then you decide, oh, I don't like that song, so I'm going to go to the next song. And you're passing potentially countless trillions of very, very precise frequency bands to get to the next song. So in that empty space, we would we think there's nothing happening, but there's actually so much happening. And in fact, there are very, very precise frequency bands that I've been able to identify mathematically that are immensely, immensely profound. For example, if you look at your chakra system, 7 to 10 chakra system, and how it corresponds to the endocrine system. So in the base of the spine, we have sexual or reproductive system. Above that, we have the endocrine system, which is pancreas and adrenals. So second and third chakra correspond to pancreas and adrenals. Heart chakra corresponds to thymus and gland. Throat chakra, communication chakra corresponds to thyroid gland. And in the head, we have pineal and pituitary gland. And pineal is really the light of the brain. And it's really builds photosensitive or light sensitive chemicals in the brain so that you can get a picture in the mind's eye. And this is what happens is when people are taking things like DMT and stimulants, they're basically saying, I don't know how to do this naturally, how to light up my brain so that I can see with the mind's eye with perfect clarity. But I can tell you from 40 years of meditation that there are meditations that can activate all of these centers. But what the missing element is in most practices is the frequencies. And frequencies in the old world were taught only by oral masters. And an oral master, for example, if you look in what's called the Gospel of the Egyptians, which is a Gnostic Christian gospel that refers to a toning practice where you repeat 7 vowels 21 times each, right? So 7 vowels 21 times. So 21 divided by 7 is Egyptian pi, or the resolution of a circle. But it's a practice of not only making vowel sounds, it's a practice of being at the right pitch or frequency with that vowel. So you could say a, ah, e, eh, I, o, u. And Ekankar people chant the mantra Hu, for example, which is an H and a U sound. But there are different pitches that you can be at. And if you're at the wrong pitch, you're not going to hit it. You're not going to open these centers properly so that you can eventually reach this supreme blinding bliss state. We all have this built into our nervous systems. So what I found in that is the missing element is that there's a function before we get to the actual transmitters that I have that can help you open up these energy centers with the advantage of precise frequency, vibrational tones going through these systems, is most of the ancient religions of the world had the function of temple, or they had, in the East Indian system, you have yantra, and yantra is geometry. And then you have temple, which is a structure. For example, in Solomon's temple, there was the cube called the Holy of Holies. And the Holy of Holies was a precise measurement of 20 by 20 by 20 God cubits. And God cubits, according to the book of Ezekiel, are a cubit and a handbreadth, not just a common builder's cubit, which is one of the biggest mistakes in the world of measure. And the most accurate royal cubit conversion to inches that exist is not in the Egyptian ruler systems, because if I give you a ruler, an Egyptian ruler, they found only 2 or 3 of these. They disagree with each other. In fact, it looks like the accuracy of measurement was in the pyramid itself. So with that, a temple inner dimension is a resonant cavity for a frequency. And if the measurement is wrong, the frequency will change. So I found it interesting because I took my family to Chaco Canyon, New Mexico some years ago, and we actually measured the temples there. Let me go to share screen because I might be able to show you. I mean, this is, are you able to see my website now?
Yes, we can.
O- Okay, so that means hopefully you'll be able to see some photos if I pull them up. So my website is my name, davidsereda.co. And there are a lot of fake David Sereda websites out there. Please stay away from them because they're fake websites. So only davidsereda.co right now. So let me see if I can find one of my Chaco Canyon images of anyway, without me looking for that too much, I don't see it. So in Chaco Canyon, I found these sacred circles, which are early First Nation Americans, Native Indian Americans living in the American Southwest, built the first super modern city, you know, going beyond the teepee and some earth dwellings. They built real stone structure buildings, and they built these resonant circles. And one of the circles we found with a Leica laser was a perfect Holy of Holies. And that's 20 cubits using the most accurate royal cubit inch, which is 20.605 inches per royal cubit, which is repeated over 15 times inside the Great Pyramid itself with laser accuracy. So that with that royal cubit inch, 20.605 inches, the Noah's Ark comes to 515.125 feet. And I believe it was Ron or James Wyatt who found the structure on Mount Ararat, and he measured it with a tape at 515 feet, and they didn't know why it was 515 feet because they were thinking of a smaller cubit. And so a lot of scholars rejected it as Noah's Ark because the math wasn't agreeing to the cubit they were using. But then what further starts to happen is the length of the Ark of the Covenant comes to 51.5125 inches, and the table before the Lord in Ezekiel is 5.15125 feet. And that number just keeps repeating and repeating and repeating. And the reason is frequency. The reason in the end is always frequency, the frequency that space will resonate at. And so I've literally decoded thousands and thousands of frequency bands based on very sacred temple measurements, Great Pyramid measurements, and measurements in nature for you to be able to work with through the different devices. And in the last episode, we talked about the vortex energy coils and the wands and briefly the staffs. But today, I want to introduce you to, my vortex mat system, which is the idea of using a 14-pointed vortex coil system for stimulating the endocrine system corresponding to the human chakra system is that in some of the best research I've ever seen into the energy dynamics and the shape of human chakra energy were taken with an over $300,000 Mitsubishi camera. I've actually seen these photographs. And in a pitch black room with a meditator, they took photos, and this was courtesy of Roger Nelson, the Princeton University Global Consciousness Project. He's the one who gave me access to the photograph. And you can see in this pitch black room a vortex energy funnel in very grainy photography coming out of the top of this meditator's head. And that tells us the shape and the dynamics of chakras are spin vortexes. So just like all the miraculous shapes we see in nature and the universe, we can see the spiral of galaxies and the spirals in seashells and plants and ferns. Everything spins in vortices in golden ratio proportions. And the golden ratio is how the Great Pyramid was built. If you take a rectangle, side A times 1.61803398887, side B, and you fold the centers together, your angle of your triangle is 51 degrees, 51 minutes, and 14.3 or 25 seconds on your corners. And if you take your golden rectangle and you fold your hypotenuse, you come to the miraculous 3, 6, and 9 that Tesla speaks about as the secret to the universe, because you have 30 degrees, 60 degrees in this corner, and 90 degrees on your on your right angle corner. So 3, 6, and 9, the secret to the universe. And that's golden ratio. Golden ratio produces the 30, the 60, the 90, and the 51 degrees, 51 minutes in the center. And so you can see in nature that there are no visible reproductions of what we call a ×2 musical octave, which is what Pythagoras built our music scale on. So if you picture a music scale corresponding to the chakra system with tones, with frequencies, that if you're going to move energy like a river or a current between chakra number 1 to chakra number 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 to 7, 8, 9, and 10 in the super blinding light chakras are above the top of the head. The space between chakras has to be in phase and resonant, meaning if they're slightly out of phase, they will wobble and distort. And if you go on my website and you go to videos, you click on more and you go to the video section, the video gallery, you'll see this amazing video here on, and use good headphones when you do this, but you'll see the video on the lost music scale. It's called right here, the lost music scale. You have to watch that because I will demonstrate using the 432 scale, which currently distorts very badly, but I fixed it using the golden ratio as an octave, because the 432 is a very profound number. The Great Pyramid scale as a scale has a total of 120 tones times 3 scales. So it has 360 perfect pitch tones that in between each note, there's no distortion or very ultra low distortion. Whereas our music scale, between the notes of A, B, C, D, F, G, you have distortion, just a little bit of distortion. And that little bit of distortion are energy waves crashing into each other. So what's very important when you're moving energy with frequencies is a single point frequency will resonate a single spot. So if I focus on my inner eye center, pineal gland, pituitary gland, and I use a single point frequency like 528, which is solfeggio, or 432, then that spot will resonate. But if I want to move energy from the base of the spine, from each chakra, I have to have a series of tone frequencies, and the spacing between those tones frequencies has to be perfect. And if they're not perfect, they will slam into each other and knock the spiritual life force energy down. Part of the energy will go down and part of the energy will go up with distortion bands. But if we go to the idea of perfect frequency spacing, then the energy just flows right up. And so when you're using a system like this with 4 coils, if you watch the video, I'm not going to play the video now, you can just go to the website and watch it. You're lying on a mat system that has these coils, these vortex energy coils underneath it. And the idea is you put a nice, see, I only use natural materials in my bed system because other companies, and I won't name them, but they're very obvious, who give you mat systems, use rubber or plastic in the mat. And at a quantum level, everything is vibrations. So when a vibration moves through an unnatural material, you're going to get a toxic vibration in the body. And that's because rubber and plastic are petrochemicals based. Excuse me, I'm just going to clear my throat here. So anyway, what happens is you have copper vortex energy coils, and because you have this vortex opening in the middle, you can place herbal plant samples, you can place smooth crystals and put them in the middle of the vortices, and then you put the mattress on top of that. And you want to use a natural latex or cotton futon to go on top of it. And this places the spine, the head at the top and the spine in proportion to everybody, no matter how tall they are. Most people will line up from the base of the spine to the head. So we'll be able to treat the 4 centers of the endocrine system, which again is the sexual root chakra, Then you get adrenals and pancreas in the adrenal and the second and third chakra. Heart chakra, which is thymus gland, and then throat is thyroid, and then you go into pineal and pituitary, and then you actually have vibrational centers just above the top of the head. And I can experience these when I go into this blinding light bliss state. There's so much ecstasy, so much blinding ecstasy, and it seems it's not local. It's not local to the body, but the body resonates in the presence of this non-local blinding light consciousness. And it looks similar to this image here, where you can see the light above the top of the head, and it gets extremely pure and extremely bright ecstasy, sometimes to the point where it's almost unbearable to be a human being. And it's very, very challenging to hold that state of consciousness, which has ultimately 7 levels to it. They get higher and higher and higher. What the Buddha called the 7 levels of the samadhi state, and 7th being the nirvana state. So, and the Gnostic Christians, in there is a gospel called it's called the Treatise on the 8th and the 9th, which is ultimately going even beyond the 7th, going into the 8th and the 9th super states. So frequencies are not, yes, they can heal the body. Yes, there are 2 different types of vibrational frequencies that you can work with. You can work with rife frequencies through the vortex energy bed, but rife frequencies are destructive frequencies. So they're destructive to pathogens, but they're not constructive frequencies. So my philosophy is, if you work with a destructive frequency to disrupt a virus, and we all know that we're coming into the time of coronavirus, and it's just another flu type virus that has a high percentage of people who are dying, which is 3%. I can consistently see it's at 3%. And it seems to kill people who have compromised immune systems. So building your magnetic field and building the magnetic field in the endocrine system is extremely beneficial for the properties of your ability to heal yourself. And a lot of the people who are dying of coronavirus are going to hospitals, and the doctors don't seem to know how to really heal them. And that's because they're not considering the endocrine system, and the lymphatic system and the circulatory system needs to be stimulated with magnetic pulses. So what I do is we have the frequencies. You click on here, for the frequencies that I have are, and this is a quote from the late Patrick Flanagan, who was a friend of mine. He said, "Your frequency calculations are excellent." And we used to sit together for hours, Pat and I. And so I have the complete scale of the Great Pyramid of Egypt, which has phenomenal proven healing results. These are constructive frequencies. Infinities, which are based on the Archimedes, the father of physics, the great Greek mathematician. Infinities are ratios of 1 to 1.11111, 1 to 1.2222, 1 to 1.3333, and they're not single point frequencies. See, a ratio, 2 frequencies in proper ratio set up resonance, whereas if I give you 528 or 432, that's a single point frequency, right? So you want to, infinite ratios contrast to finite ratio. So a finite ratio would be a frequency of 1 to 1.25, and then it just ends. But with infinite ratios, the infinite expression just goes forever. And you can feel these. They're very smooth on the nervous system. They're very soothing, Archimedean infinities. And there's 10 levels, and each track has 10 frequencies built into it. So it's 10 times 10 for each track. So 10 tracks is 1,000 frequencies. So when I say I have the largest frequency library on Earth, it really is. There's nobody else who has this. You can go to all the other companies that make healing bed systems, and they have rife frequencies. Yes, everyone has access to rife, including this system. All you need is a simple frequency app in your phone or in your computer device. And you can go, I can show you what one looks like here. Here's one called iFunction Generator. And Function Generator Pro allows you to have, see, I have 2 frequency tracks. I can change the waveform, punch in the right frequency. And the reason you want to do this versus using, don't buy these apps that say they're right frequencies, because those are MP3 files. An MP3 file is this deep and a full wave file is this deep. So you want to use full resolution live frequencies. Don't get sucked into the convenience of a little pad with all these pre-made MP3 files. They're useless. Don't use those. Use real frequencies. All of my frequencies you download into an iTunes player in your device, and you just organize them and you're ready to go. So we have the sound of the sun, we have prime numbers, we have the golden ratio brainwave series, and those are, again, the octave and the scaled function of the universe reveals the golden ratio is everywhere. So I build brainwaves training on the fundamental golden ratio number. So you have delta, you have theta, alpha, beta, gamma, all built into golden ratio numbers, and they're really profound. We have the polygonal number frequencies, and these are the numbers that build polygons mathematically. A polygon, it starts with a triangle to a square to a pentagon to a hexagon, and they just keep going. We go all the way to the 14-sided polygon series with the frequencies that build those geometries. And they literally build them within the nervous system. When you're using frequencies, you're building neural pathways to the function of that frequency. And we have so little experience. We use the word frequency in healing. Raise your vibration, raise your frequency. The question is, what frequency? And this gets really incredible. I mean, I have so many frequencies. God's building blocks are I was talking about the God's building blocks frequencies, which is the unit that is consistently used throughout the ages and even cross cultures and crosses religions. For example, if you take the King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid, it comes to exactly 20 of the royal cubits, which is 412.1 inches or 34.34 feet precisely. And that's, so what I did is I built frequencies based on the unit that builds that system. So let me just go to my webpage again so that people can see this, how it works. And then I'll go to share screen here in just a second. It's very profound working with these kind of frequencies, because you're looking at see, here, let me go to share screen, because I'm not in share screen, and then we go desktop.
Right at the bottom, yeah.
Yeah, so you can see that this is the lower portion of my homepage. So you go to my homepage, davidsereda.co, and link to coronavirus solutions, 5G and EMF solutions. I know that's going to be a question. And at the bottom here, you can see my frequency library link, and also Project Astral Stargate frequencies. We'd have to do a whole show just on this, because these are based on the radius of over 50 known stars. I've calculated 2,000 frequencies among those star frequencies. And I have very exciting news, because I have a perfect match to the Great Pyramid of Egypt, to a known star. So you take the height of the Great Pyramid, and if you take a crystal pyramid whose slope angle is 51 degrees, 51 minutes, and a steel ball who's the same height, and you submerge them in a water tank one at a time, they displace the same amount of water precisely in milliliters, which means the pyramid is the cubic volume of a sphere, so of the same height. So what I did is I took stars and I kept dividing the diameter of stars with the golden ratio, golden ratio, golden ratio, and none of them fit the Great Pyramid except for one. And it's a particular star in Orion's belt. And then I shrunk it down more in golden ratio, and it was the precise measurement of the Holy of Holies, which is the King's Chamber. The King's Chamber is the exact same measurement as the Holy of Holies in Solomon's Temple. And yet, supposedly, it's an Egyptian monument, and supposedly Solomon's Temple is a Jewish ancient Hebrew monument or temple. And the point is that these measurements are frequencies, because a wavelength is a frequency, and a temple has the function spiritually, and which is a huge advantage in the meditation and spiritual ascension process. And we'd have to do something separate just on that. So if you click on my frequency library, and there's links to it on almost every page, you can see we left off with God's building blocks. Solfeggio scale, which I rescaled with the golden ratio. Trinity, the most three sacred numbers. And the Holy of Holies frequencies based on the wavelengths and all of their resonant octaves that span the audible frequency range. The cube, and the cube is probably one of the most sophisticated sets of frequencies I've ever built. They're binaural, trinaural, quadrinaural, and frequencies that are all stacked into a cube. So when you're doing frequencies, it's kind of like Neo in the Matrix. You're doing super learning for your nervous system. You're building neural pathways that open up consciousness and qualities in consciousness that exist at very, very precise frequencies. So what I've done is I've spent years doing this. I didn't just come up with this in 1 year. This has been going on for years. I've rescaled the sacred 432 frequency, and 432 happens to match a perfect octave of a perfect star based on the radius of that star. And all of these things will be revealed. Tesla's 3, 6, and 9 numbers scaled the Earth frequency according to Tesla, 7.83, and I scale it with golden ratio. And you can work with the complete list of Rife frequencies with any of my devices by connecting a simple frequency app like I mentioned on my phone. There's actually better ones than even that one. If you have an Apple device, the Black Hat Systems iFunction generator allows you to do up to 13 frequencies at the same time on your phone or your iPad. It's called the Black Hat Systems iFunction generator. So that way you're putting out frequencies live. If you're working with Rife, don't use recordings. Only use live frequencies because they're deeper. And then Fibonacci's sequence as frequencies, which I found to be phenomenal. The Fibonacci's numbers are 0, 0, 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21, 34, and you just keep adding 2 numbers in the sequence to get the next number. And eventually, way up on the sequence, you enter the highest resolution of the golden ratio, which is 1.61803398887. But it keeps getting more refined the higher you go up. In fact, one of my solutions to 5G, 5th generation internet, is to operate the internet at a golden ratio Fibonacci sequence. So you would have the internet and cell phone data being transmit at precise harmonics, because it's not so much frequencies that are hurting us. Remember, there's destructive frequencies and constructive frequencies. There's harmonic set frequencies. So you can broadcast all of the frequencies on the planet at harmonic intervals together in sets instead of just blasting them out at any old number, because we just like, the power of this number, right? So when the universe was created, the background cosmic microwave radiation permeates the entire universe, the entire galaxy, the whole universe. So we're bathed in microwaves anyway. It's all around us in a natural sense, but those microwaves exist on a super weak scale. But there are harmonic numbers that are beneficial to human consciousness, is what I'm saying. So in the last episode, we talked about why you don't want to block your whole house, because basically it's like a plant with no sunlight. You're not going to get the natural frequencies that you're trying to receive if you live in an energy wave trap. So basically, with all of these frequencies that I have on my site, I'm coming out with, and they're available now, but we'd have to do a whole show on this before we go to the questions, is the Project Astral Stargate frequencies. And these frequencies are really incredible. I mean, again, you can go to this section of my site and you can listen to some of the experiences I've archived with using these types of frequencies. And again, I found that this particular star in Orion's belt, which I'm going to reveal soon, that matches perfectly to it as an octave to the height of the Great Pyramid, and then you continue the octaves and you come to the exact size of the Holy of Holies. So when I was calculating the frequencies of this particular star, I noted, oh my God, it's the same frequency as the cubic space of the Holy of Holies in Solomon's Temple and the King's Chamber in the Great Pyramid. And I thought, how could it be so precise? It was, on my calculator, it was 99.99% accurate. So that tells me that temples are stargates. You know, they're spiritual stargates, and there's a reason that particular frequency is so powerful for a human being. So let's go to the questions.
Yes, let's, because I think time's marching on a bit, and Jared's been waiting for a while. It's a shame that you had that power outage just now. Right, James, would you be able to, I think in order to move faster, instead of unmuting people and getting them to speak and all that and waiting for the microphones to work and all that, James, would you please read out the questions? I think it will be quicker that way, don't you think?
Sure. Okay.
David, we need you to stop screen share so we can see James and the others. Thank you.
Somebody was asking about rife frequencies. I don't know. You need to be a little bit more specific.
James, where are you?
You can't hear me?
But we can't see you. Yeah.
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But what are they asking about, Rife?
Trisha, you might need to be a little bit more specific. It doesn't even look written in a question form. Okay, so let's go on. Next question. How do you measure 5G frequencies, and how do you make sure calibrated enough not to be affected?
Okay, first of all, 5G means fifth generation, and they don't use a single frequency. Different cell phone companies like AT&T and Verizon, all these different companies occupy certain bands. And those bands, in a recent article I read, go all the way up to 300 and something gigahertz. So they're billion hertz wavelengths, and billion hertz wavelengths are, they're really tiny. That one of the reasons they're arguing 5G is that the reason they need so many repeaters, these little repeater boxes in your town, is that they are going to be interfered by raindrops and moisture droplets. Because water, essentially, when electromagnetism hits water slows it down by about up to 30%, 25 to 30%. So you get a little bit of distortion. So water causes a little bit of slowing of the speed of light and electromagnetism. So they're saying we need more we need more repeaters towers, these little towers, everywhere. And there are reasons to 5G that I just had a meeting with somebody whose relative works for the national security. And what this allows them to do, 5G, is think about airplanes and how we use microwaves to detect moving aircraft. Well, that's what microwaves are. They can give you a visual confirmation of moving objects. And this person who works in intelligence told this individual they can see inside of everybody's houses with 5G. They can see what's going on. And very exclusively, I'll give you a little clue, they started seeing spiritual interdimensional beings on these 5G camera systems, right? So remember, when electromagnetism or light hits a wall, part of the signal goes through the wall, part of the signal interacts with the subatomic particles in the wall, and part of it reflects off the wall. But because microwaves are so dense and penetrating, of course they can go through your house, because that's how you can hear the signal on your cell phone. But it also gives them a picture of what's going on in your house. And this particular person who works at National Security told me that they're able to see interdimensional beings, and they're able to see who the interdimensional beings are interested in. And this is brand new, top secret information. If you know the TV series, it's called Unidentified, about the Navy pilots who saw UFOs off the coast of San Diego, and they were chasing them and off the eastern United States. They're seeing them on their radar. The radar is microwaves, and that's the same thing. The internet towers, all the microwave towers do the same thing that the Navy operators do. They give them a picture of what's moving around out there. So it makes perfect sense to me, this news that I got. But they're basically trying to find out where these beings in their craft are interested on the planet, whom they're interested in, and they're keeping accurate data on their invisibility factors and where they're moving around, and possibly where these craft are assembling, because it's absolutely a real phenomenon. It's been in the New York Times, been in every newspaper in the world about the Navy pilots and these mysterious craft. So next question.
Thank you. Before you move on to the next question, I just wanted to say that Britain has its first 5G court case, a landmark court case, and the people won. I'm sure you've seen it in the news, and this is so cool. It's Mark Steele, one of the inventors of some 5G components, who's very actively leading the Stop 5G People movement in England. So that's a big hooray. The judge actually, the UK judge actually has declared that the people have a right to know about the harmful effects of 5G millimeter wave technology being deployed upon them. So that's a very good landmark case that will pave the way. Thank you. Yeah, but you are right, David, about Marina Jacobi of, Marina Jacobi is renowned for bringing information in this direction as well. And she has actually mentioned that 5G can be turned around with the actual harmonics in the what you call that, the frequencies, as you say, if they tune correctly, yes.
So for example, if you take Fibonacci's number sequence, you eventually come to 7.7 megahertz, 7.77 megahertz, sorry, so 3 sevens, right? And you take the height of the Great Pyramid finished times, the golden ratio, 1.618033987, it comes to 777.77 feet. Cool. Which is all 7. So I thought, why not run the internet at a harmonic? Because remember, there are certain frequencies that are disruptive to the nervous system, and there are certain ones that are really smooth, and the nervous system loves them. Plants love them. One of the ways you can do studies on what are safe frequency bands is it's not so much about how high the frequency gets, because we're surrounded by super high frequencies. The sun, the stars are all super high frequencies. They go, rarely you get X-rays down here because they get absorbed by the Earth's ionosphere and transform, but we're still bathed in natural resonant super high frequencies. And the frequencies we're operating the internet on so far are nowhere near the level of even the color red. We're not even anywhere near the color red yet as a frequency in a wavelength. But the point is, there are harmonic numbers. So if you keep going with Fibonacci's numbers, and I did this, you can actually go online and you can see what are the first 1,000 Fibonacci numbers, and you'll see you're going to get right into where we're running the internet. So why not, and this is my idea to propose this, start running the internet and making petitions And I actually wrote Sasha Stone my new idea, who did the film The 5G Apocalypse. So why don't we think in terms of harmonic frequencies and doing studies under the microscope and finding a safe frequency bands. And bands are like, you know, different cell companies run multiple bands, and the next cell company runs and they pay for that bandwidth. So all they have to do is transmit only at these harmonic bands. And there's ultimately millions of potential harmonic bands. They're just very, very precise numbers that have a decimal. After the decimal point, there might be 20 or 30 numbers. And of accuracy is what I'm saying. And that means we can still telecommunicate with our devices, but we can be running on a harmonic.
Yeah, let's get together one of these days, David. I'll get Sasha, and we will discuss how we can, you know, be on a panel.
Yeah, I'd love to do it. Sasha and I know each other. We've met. I mean, he's had powwows with a lot of
We get
you know,
Mark
positive thinkers
to be talking to us as well, and see what we can do to get this
Yeah,
going.
I think this is the solution. We're not going to beat these guys. You're not going to take down the internet, but you need to understand the harmonic principle. What I've discovered is you can take any frequency and multiply it in octaves or divide it in octaves by the golden ratio. And when you do a tone test, there's no distortion between the notes. It's the most smooth transition of frequencies that exists. I mean, the Pythagorean octave times 2 is much sharper. It's not as smooth.
We
And
can
so
talk
therefore,
about this further. We can go into details, and
okay.
Sasha and perhaps Mark Steele as well, and we will talk about this. We have to move on now. The next question, please, James. There you are, James. I see you.
Fraz, it won't let me unmute you.
Yeah, I'm good.
All right. Did you want to ask a question, or you want me to do it?
I was going that in our other group we have rhetorical questions, and you're free to answer or not. But we pose the question that colors have frequencies, musical notes have frequencies, planets, because of their size and diameter, have frequencies that are specific to them. What about gravity? Does gravity have a frequency? And I ask more as a rhetorical question, and I'll sit back and see how we want to.
Well, gravity, as we understand it, or we don't understand it, it travels at the same velocity, supposedly, the speed of light, which is a very precise number. I don't use the number on Wikipedia, which is 186,282 miles per second, because there's, after the 282, there's a whole bunch of other numbers. If you go to the Michelson-Morley experiments, you'll see the more precise, and the speed of light varies slightly, but gravity is proportional to it. In fact, gravity might be negative light. The one thing about light is that it's the only, say, every subatomic particle, you have electron, anti-electron, tau, anti-tau, quark, up quark, down quark, all particles are bound in duality. They all have a counter partner. But light apparently is just positive. It spins positive. So if the fact that they're the same velocity, we could be missing gravity. It could be as simple as negative light. And negative light would be a receiving energy. So you imagine space as a blanket surrounding our pearl of a planet. The negative light is coming into everything, and the positive light is emitting. But even positive light has to be attracted to the negative, because positive and negative are attracted to each other, and there's a dynamic there. And again, you know, whatever these flying craft are using, there's no huge energy signature that these Navy pilots have seen in their radar detection and their FLIR, forward-looking infrared detection of the craft. There's no thrust. There's no enormous heat signature there either, because heat is energy as we understand it in thermodynamics. So to answer the question, does gravity have a frequency? Of course, because all waves have frequencies, but it might be a negative light frequency as opposed to a positive emitting signal.
Right. Okay. So let's press. Has David answered your question? Press.
I may not have, I mean, again, this is an area that it is an enormous area when you get into the subject of gravity. It's
I
an
think.
enormous area. I've spent years in physics and also theoretical ideas on this. I mean, the hardest thing to do when you have a theory is to build an experiment that supports or doesn't support the theory. So you have to build physical experiments. I mean, right now, gravity is supposedly proportional to mass, but my theory on gravity is, to elaborate, is the gravity pre-existed the mass. So when you had the early universe and these vortices of started to form in the cosmic microwave background radiation, the gravity was already there. And the reason I believe that is all the particles, all the dust particles, all these tiny particles just came together and formed the sun. Other ones formed planets, the protoplanetary disks. And once the planet reached its mass equivalent to the amount of gravity that was there, it doesn't attract debris at the same rate. Like, when's the last time we were hit by, something from outer space? But in the early development of our planet, everything was hitting us. It was just being bombarded until its mass reached its critical mass volume state. And once it reached that, it stopped attracting more and more excessive amounts of matter. And that means that the gravity was there first, not the matter. But what we do now in Einstein's formula is we say the gravity is proportional to the mass. But how did the mass get there in the first place? Why did it, come together in that spot and not this spot over here, right? And not, why did a planet form here and a star form here, but all that other space it didn't form? And that's because the gravity preceded the mass, which means gravity has nothing to do with mass. It could be negative light. And if it's negative light, as I propose, it'll change everything. It means you don't need all this mass to fight gravity.
Right. David,
But it
perhaps.
does have a frequency, and it wouldn't just be one frequency. Again, it would be multiple frequency bands.
Right. Fres does chair the R&D meeting with Pontus. We have our physics research and development meetings every Monday. Perhaps you could come in and put some light on some of these questions that our team asked, and then you can go into more details, David. How's that? Right. So meanwhile,
Yeah, I would like to do that. I mean, my information comes from when I was using Palladian frequencies based on the radius of Palladian stars. They started appearing to me, and they were teaching me all this stuff. And I wrote it all down. This is years ago, and I was using the frequencies of all the, at that time we had the radius of 5 Palladian stars, and they're quite young stars. They're in the 100 million year range. Our sun is 4.5 billion year old star, one of the older stars, in the local galaxy. Like, even the stars in Orion are very young. Some of them are 75 million year old stars. I mean, so we're hanging around an ancient being here, super ancient, early universe being. And again, before the stars formed, the gravity had to already be there.
Mhm. Right. So as I said, we got to move on because we are late for
Okay.
that section. So
I know, I get so excited. Some of these questions are so good. I really just go on.
we will bring you to the Monday meeting so we can
Yeah.
cover a lot of ground there. So James, are you going to go on to the next important question? We have to be very selective now. I think we have room for just 2 more questions, and that's it. And you've got to answer them very quickly, David, because Jared has been waiting on this for a while. Yeah. Go on, James.
Well, Trisha had another question. I'm gonna move on, giving someone else a question here. How do we run the internet on Fibonacci frequencies? Just listening to it on the computer while we work?
Well, you wouldn't listen to anything, because the Fibonacci frequencies go all the way up, way past human hearing. We only hear as high as 20,000 hertz, and I don't think most people with background noise can even hear 20,000 hertz anymore. But you're talking about frequencies that are way beyond audible spectrum, and they're carrier waves. So they carry the information. The data gets transmitted on the super high Fibonacci number bands, right? So that's the idea.
What meter would you suggest to find 5G frequencies?
Well, here's the problem now with meters. All your meters have a bandwidth limit, right? If you go to trifield, trifield.com, and you get the new TF2 meter, let me see if I can see mine around here. These guys can see up to 8 gigahertz. And I can see there's so many bands in the internet. They're not all at 300 gigahertz. A lot of the internet is running on the lower bands. So the trifield, you turn it to radio frequency mode, and you can see that it's in my office it's 0. That's because I'm not Wi-Fi here. I have an Ethernet cable. I'm 30 feet from my house, and there's no activity here. So I'm clean in my space that I'm operating on. But the idea of running, see, I'm just going to Google this. So we should probably take the next question, Crystal, because
all right.
Here's the first Fibonacci numbers, and oh my God, I mean, they go way up. You get to the first 100th Fibonacci number is oh my God, I have to look at these numbers closely, but just Google the first 100 Fibonacci numbers, and you're going to get up into high gigahertz here. I mean, and even beyond that. So that's you can Google it. Somebody has them posted.
Okay, thank you. So Mike Emery wishes to reach out to you. So Mike, reach out to him maybe on Facebook or send him an email on his website. Maria with 5G systems are quite obviously installed in special supermarkets. The employees are protected against this by technology unknown to me. Is there something inexpensive that she can do or produce herself to, I don't know, or does the disc help? The principle of open coil to reduce the 5G frequencies?
Well, you can see my technology says you can have your own transmitter in your own house, and then you can choose the frequency to recalibrate at a harmonic your house, right? Your office even. So even though you have all these signals coming in, what the signal that's closest to your proximity of your auric field and your nervous system is the one you're going to be calibrated at. Believe it or not, unless you're downtown, like if I walk around in my little town of 10,000 people with the TF2 meter in radio frequency mode, I can see massive activity. And especially when I get close to the range of my tower. But I mean, when you get under the tower, you won't see much. But at a distance from your microwave tower, this meter is going to go crazy. And you're going to go, oh my God, we're all walking around in this. So you can take supplements. Like it's good to take magnesium, potassium on a regular basis because those are, nervous system foods that they're electrolytes. You need to take electrolytes to keep the frequency in your body high, right? Electrolytes are exactly what they sound like. They help us carry electrical signals in our nervous system. So magnesium is good for muscle and heart because of the electricity in muscle and heart. Potassium is basically brain food. Germanium is in garlic and reishi mushrooms, it's harder to get germanium as a supplement. You can take a little bit of lithium, which is in pistachios and lemons. So you want to build your electrolytes. You got to keep your electrolytes up, and that's also good for giving you the energy to fight the flu.
Good. So the 2 questions are up already, James. I think that's it, right? If we could just wrap it up, I think that I shall have to close this very quickly now. And I want to thank David Sereda for doing such an awesome presentation. It's brilliant with what he's bringing to the table. Thank you, folks. And we would like to put you through to Marina Jacobi of of Harmonic Reactor. She's the author of Harmonic Reactor. And also, well, as I said, we should get together with Sasha Stone, Mark Steele, and the rest who would be able to put your ideas through and turn around the internet frequencies into a conducive one. Right. So there being no other business, folks, this meeting, this session, first session of the 74th FESIG meeting is now adjourned to the second session. And thank you very much, everyone. And stay on if you want to listen to Jared Rand, stay on because we have the next session coming up now. And we are going to have a little short break. David, you're most welcome to stay on if you have the time. Okay, we'll have a short party break, like a minute, and then we're going to start again the second session. Thank you so much, everyone. Namaste.